Good evening. I hope you had a nice afternoon. I took a nap. That was really nice. So here we are for this session, and we're looking at renewing. And we're going to start with meditation, a sitting meditation. So we'll do similar to what we did this morning. And so you've got some options. You can do centering prayer if you would like. So you're welcome to do that again. Also, if you would like to try a different meditation technique, you can try breath prayer or breath meditation. And there's many different kinds of breath prayer meditation. This one is just a very simple, basic form. And all that is you are breathing in, and then breathing out, and breathing in, and breathing out, just at a normal pace. And that is your anchor. That is what brings you back to the present moment when the mind sort of takes over. And so you can breathe in through your nose or your mouth and breathe out through your nose or your mouth. It doesn't matter, either is fine. And it's good we often breathe just from our chest, really shallow breath. And so it's good to really sort of breathe from your belly. And one way to be more aware of that is to actually put your hand on your belly and to feel your hand move as your belly expands. And so it's more of a deeper breath. And by the way, so our breathing kind of happens. We don't make our breathing happen. It happens to us in a way. We can try to stop breathing. We can hold our breath, but we don't stop. My wife's sister, when they were little, would be very stubborn, and if she didn't get away, she would say she's going to hold her breath. And so they just watch her, and she'd hold her breath. And then she'd start to turn colors, and then she'd pass out. She was very stubborn. And then what would happen? Yeah, she starts breathing. So it kind of happens. It happens to us. We say I'm breathing, but really it's happening to us. It's like our heart. We don't say I'm beating my heart. It's really happening. And I'm saying that because it's the same way with the mind. The mind is often thinking for itself. We want to think we're doing the thinking, and sometimes we are. Sometimes we can be very focused and use the mind as a tool. And okay, let's figure this out. Let me think through this, and I want to reflect on this. And that's great. But a lot of times the mind is just doing it on its own. And that's what the mind does. And that's why it's so challenging, because it sort of takes over. So that's a second meditation technique you can try if you would like. And then a third idea is if you have your own practice, your own technique, you can do that right now. So we're going to take some time and go into meditation. And again, it's good to have a good posture, alert but relaxed. Alert but relaxed. And also, if anyone gets very uncomfortable with sitting meditation, you don't have to do this. You don't have to stay in here. You're very welcome to take a walk or just move out for a little bit. Sitting meditation practice isn't always for everyone. There's some times in our life that it's maybe too intense, and that's okay. So don't feel bad if you need to get up or walk out or whatever, that's just fine. So we'll do this again, and I'll keep track of the time, and I'll ring the gong to start us, and then when the time's up, I'll ring it again as we end. Okay, so that was just a little bit longer than this morning. That was 25 minutes. Just briefly, any comments, thoughts, noticings after that session? I can't see very well, so you might have to just speak up.
You didn't tell us how long we were going to be sitting. And that was in my mind for quite a while. It was one of those thoughts that was persistent.
Yeah, okay, so the not knowing is challenging for the mind, right? Yeah, I did not tell you how long because I wasn't sure. And yeah, so that can be challenging. Yeah, the mind is like, the mind wants to know. It wants to know answers and have everything laid out. So that's a challenge.
I had a harder time staying focused this time around than the first time.
Okay, you had a harder time this time. Okay, any thoughts why?
I think my mind was fuller than in the morning.
Okay. So maybe time of day may influence that. Okay. Supper, I heard somebody say supper. Okay.
You gave us more choices in this session.
Okay.
So I found myself jumping from considering prayer to breath to noticing where my body was in space.
Okay.
Back into that person move.
All right. Yeah. So a challenge with too many choices. Okay. So yeah, and again, that's the mind loves to play those games. Pick A. No, choose B. No, try C for a while. And it's kind of it's a way to keep it busy and distracted. Yeah, that can be challenging.
It's also a challenge because there's only so much meditation one can do in a day. And between what we've done and then this afternoon, just sitting around, being restful and peaceful, and then just I think that's why I had a hard time. I was like, all right, after about 10 minutes, I was like, and we can quit. Like, we can move on. Like, I'm ready. I've had a restful day. Like, I'm ready for something different. Like some interaction.
Right.
Not to say that's bad. There's just the challenge of like, no, it's okay to keep doing this, to just get back in it after being like, yeah, but I've done it all day. Like, you can keep doing it. It's okay. So that's my challenge.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so sometimes we've already done this for a while and it's been restful this afternoon. And, the mind gets bored. And, boredom is about not wanting to be in the present moment. That's really what boredom is. And so, a lot of times when we're bored, it's the mind saying, I don't like this, let's move on, let's do something else. so that's a challenge to work with boredom. Yeah, so, and maybe there could be too much too. I was once at a retreat where we did this 9 hours in a day, so that was really challenging.
I thought you were gonna have us do 5 minutes this morning, and we said 20 alarms went off in my head. 9 hours.
Yeah.
I got a word today called how active my relationship is with God, that I'm kind of in this constant dialogue all day, whether it's prayers of gratitude, or it's requests, or needing insight for a sermon. It's just this constant conversation. And what I learned today is the gift of just being in God's presence. It's been very refreshing for me to just stop and say, wow, I can just be. I don't have to be having this constant busy dialogue. I can just be in God's presence. So I hope it to be a great gift for my ceremony. So thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, we can kind of look at it like a relationship. So when we're young and maybe dating someone, we may feel like we need to talk constantly, carry on a conversation, lots of activity. When we've been together for 50 years, we know it's okay to sit in the room and completely be in love and connected but not say anything. And so there's this deeper sense of relationship where we know we can just be in someone's presence. And that's kind of how I see it with our relationship with God.
I find myself having to remind myself that the stillness isn't in service of productivity, and it's not a reward for being productive enough. That the stillness has its own purpose and meaning, just like my being has its own purpose and meaning. And so I tend to have this kind of arc in which the first 5 minutes is like, oh yeah, this is good. And then my brain goes into, all right, now you should do something. This time it's done. Let's move on. And then the arc comes back to, okay, no, you actually just be in this. And then I tend to kind of lose myself a little bit. And in that time, for me, I could have gone much further after we finished after 25 minutes than I felt like I could have done after 10 minutes. And it's like I had to die to the productivity of let's do something now. And then I could actually experience the kind of gift of stillness itself.
Yeah, sometimes there is this sweet spot we have to get past. If a lot of times I've read and heard it's 20 minutes. So if you get to that 20-minute marker, and that's great, and then you can kind of drop into this deeper sense. But it's different for everyone. And yeah, the mind again wants to make this a practice. The stillness is in certitude for this thing in the future, productivity or whatever. And that's not the case. This is the big game right here, is what we were talking about this morning. This is it, being present. It's not in service of anything. It's our awareness and our connection we're making with God and with our true selves.
I'm glad you gave us the option. You said if you have another way of doing meditation, feel free to do it. As a traumatic brain injury survivor, I have an issue where my mind does squirrel cage thinking, what's called perseveration, and I can't stop dwelling on something. So I've learned to meditate in such a way where it's almost like I step beside myself and I let my mind just kind of staticky pop and fizz and dwell on whatever it needs to dwell, and I kind of watch it from the side until it finally settles back down again. So For what it's worth, that's another kind of meditation.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. Okay, so we're, kind of the diagram I've been working with, we've been talking about is this axis, the horizontal axis, the vertical, or you can say dimension, the horizontal dimension, the vertical dimension, or realm, or whatever. And so that's our humanness, and then the beingness. And so we can get lost on the human spectrum, kind of get into this trance-like place where we're really not present and our mind is in control. And then we can really connect with being, and when we do that, we can get this balance with being and doing, with both of those axes. Because it's not like once we connect with being, we just have nothing to do with this human realm. I mean, there are very few people who then move to a little cave somewhere and just meditate for the rest of their lives. But that's not most of us. Most of us are to be engaged in the world and with others and our jobs and occupations and everyday life. And so what happens is when we connect with being, what that does is that brings this great quality to anything we're doing. So it brings this aliveness, it brings this great intelligence, it brings just what we need to do what we need to do and say what we need to say. So when I teach art to groups, people are often a little nervous when it comes to art because they have these ideas that they're not an artist and, oh no, I hope I don't have to show my work. And so I give them these three, I call them the three secret teachings. And the first one is, it's the process, not the product. And so again, that's teaching them, it's all about the present moment. What we've all been talking about, but I just word it as process. So I tell them, focus on the process, not the finished product. The artwork will take care of itself. That's not really your work. Let the artwork take care of it. And in the end, we'll see what happens. But right now, work on this, whatever is happening right now. The second teaching is be really kind to yourself, because we're often very, very critical of ourselves. And then the third teaching is, secret teaching is, you really can't mess this up. And so we're getting beyond right and wrong, or good and bad. And that is the world we live in. Our mind loves, well, this is right and this is wrong, and this is good and this is bad. And I'll tell you who's good and I'll tell you who's bad. And the mind loves to do that. And so when we get in this vertical dimension and really connect with God and who we are, we move beyond this having to decide who's in and who's out and what's best and what's worst and who's right and who's wrong. And so all of those little teachings that I do, the process of a product, be kind to yourself, and you can't do this wrong, what that does is it gives quality to what we're doing, to what we're working on. It gives this intense quality. And so that, when I'm teaching these art classes, I say, you can take these secret teachings into anything you do. Whatever your job, schoolwork, whatever, because we're often more focused on, out here in the future, the grade, if we're in school, the paycheck at our job, or our performance, or whatever. But really, when we focus on the moment, what's happening right now, that always takes care of itself. there's always this a great amount of quality and intelligence to what we're doing. And that's this balance of the horizontal and vertical that we're looking for. And so this, I like to say this goes into these ideas that Jesus gives about becoming like a child or welcoming a child and all of these childlike attributes that we begin to get in touch with being. And so there's spontaneity that starts to arise, there's creativity that begins to arise, there's compassion that arises, there's freshness and newness. So we're not stuck in the same old thing all the time, whether it's our sermons or the way we interact with people or how we teach. There is this new and fresh component that comes in when we're connected with being. There's this energetic feel. There's a sense of new color, new light, openness, welcoming. And so that's all very wonderful. It's all very wonderful, the openness and the welcoming and all of that. And so, so one example when we're connected with being and we're welcoming what is happening, it just means we're accepting reality. So, like if I'm driving home and I have a flat tire, I mean, who wants to have a flat tire? My spare tire is rotten anyway, so I can't even change it. So, what do I do? It doesn't mean I'm glad, I'm happy, I have to put a smile on my face. It means I can take some kind of action. Well, I can't change my tire because my spare's rotten. I can make a phone call, I can flag somebody down, I can sit and wait. So I can do some sort of action, and then the rest, we wait. We're there with it. This is reality. What's the use of going crazy in our mind and thinking, well, what if I should have done this? And why didn't I take this road? And why didn't I try this thing? Or why is this always happening to me? And that's what the mind does. And so we enter into this place of welcoming what is happening and not trying to pretend like, oh, I really need to be somewhere else, or why didn't this happen? It's like getting stuck in traffic, right? So we get stuck in traffic, we're going to the cities, and the line is, I can't even see the end. What is happening? Why do they do this construction now? Don't they know better? This is ridiculous. I mean, so that's the mind. It just jumps in there. And so our work is, this is the way it is. Can I take any action right now? Can I pull over? No. This is it. And this is my chance to be present and welcoming, and this is the reality that I'm in. And so it's this, it's this great balance we begin to interact with those two dimensions. Evelyn Underhill, she talks about this importance of relationships. I just want to talk about that quickly or briefly. So when we're able to get into being, our relationships can really be altered and affected. And I first want to say something about our relationships with objects. So we often think, okay, relationships, my spouse, my friends, my family, coworkers, parishioners. But one of our first relationships is objects. We sit on them, we wear them, we walk through them, we sleep on them, we buy them, we sell them, we throw them away. I mean, objects are, everywhere. And so One thing Evelyn Underhill says is to see things for their own sake, not for your own. And this is a great spiritual teaching. So yeah, so this pen, I use it to write with, but it's also good at times to be aware that this pen has an essence of its own. And yes, it is an object, but at the molecular level, it's very alive. I mean, there's all these particles moving around inside of it, inside of everything. You know, I was talking with somebody about quantum physics today, and so that's the whole idea we're understanding about quantum physics, is that this aliveness at this very deep level of so-called inanimate objects, but there really is animation. It's just happening at a deep, deep, deep level. And so there's this sense of what is our relationship with things, with objects? You know, do we throw them around? Do we just trash things? Or can we learn to be soft with objects and to pay a little attention to things? You know, there's the teachings, you know, can we learn to slam our car door a little softer? Can we learn when we vacuum not to hit the leg of the couch so many times? Can we learn when we walk into a room to, you know, acknowledge the space and just to be aware? So that brings us into this presence. Are you raising your hand?
I had a comment on that.
Yes.
There's a connection there too with ethics and aesthetics on that thought by Evelyn Underhill. So Immanuel Kant summarized his ethical theory as one of his approaches to ethics as always treat others not only as means to an end, but as ends in themselves, which I think is very close to that idea. And then secondly, there's a theory, it's kind of an old theory now in aesthetics, or the theory of beauty, that you can sense, or you can see what we would call beauty in an object when you disassociate it from its utilitarian uses and look at it in and of itself. So for example, instead of looking at a spoon as a utensil to eat with, you notice the lines and the curves and the form, and then this gives us an ability to appreciate beauty or form or function in the world around us. So they all seem to be connected, I think, in that level. So.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Thanks for mentioning that. Yeah, and so it's this way to begin to, like was just said, to appreciate objects for themselves. And that moves into when we are in nature, appreciating nature, which we, I think we try to do, we mostly do, but, you know, walking across the grass, noticing our feet on the grass, noticing the shape of the trees, noticing the sounds of the birds, just being more aware of the relationship we have with nature and animals and plants. And we're learning that, you know, these things often have more of a consciousness than we realize. We're learning that plants are communicating with each other and that they have this intelligence of their own and that they may feel pain. And so we are learning all this all the time. And so our relationship, thinking about our relationship with objects, with the natural world is of vital importance when we're really focused on the present moment, the spiritual life, our connection with God. And then it goes into our relationship with others. And we know that we're finding that attention, when we give attention to others, it affects them in deep ways. Like I mentioned a little bit this morning. I had there's a doctor in Japan, Dr. Emoto. So maybe you've seen some of this. He's done this work with water crystals. And so he's shown and has all this evidence, and you can look this up and see actual images of how water crystals are changed with thought and intention. And so he's done all these experiments of having bad thoughts at water crystals, and then he'll look at them under the microscope, and they're these kind of horrid, jagged shapes. And then he'll do these experiments of having kind thoughts and good intentions, and look at them under the microscope, and they're these beautiful, gorgeous crystals. And it's just very fascinating to see how just giving our attention to things, and especially people, has a great impact on them. And again, they may not know this. We may give complete attention to somebody and they're just oblivious and they just keep talking and kind of ignore us, and that's okay. But our work is to be completely present as much as we can. And so it's when somebody's talking, instead of, okay, I hate what they're saying, and these are the 3 reasons that they're wrong, and I'm going to say that as soon as they're done talking, that's what the mind likes to do. And so instead, just giving our complete attention to people, not just when they're talking, but at many different times, is vital as we seek to be the people that God has created us to be. Okay, I just want to give just a little bit of time. I want to mention a few other practices. Here we go. A few other meditations. These are very short meditations that you can try. We'll just do a few here. And again, I do want to say that I don't want you to leave here thinking, oh no, more things to add to my giant to-do list. So yeah, centering prayer, that does take some time. But a lot of these present moment meditations, a way to bring us back to center, can be done anytime. We do a lot of waiting in life. So a lot of these can be done when we're waiting in lines, when we're waiting at the stoplight, we're waiting for somebody to pick us up, we're waiting for that phone call. A lot of times we can implement these meditations at many different times throughout our day without feeling the guilt of, oh no, more things to add. So that's not what this is about. So just a few things. So this is one we can try. So this is called clap space. And so this is when we want to just have a short space of no thought. Just a very short, intense space of no thought. And all we do is we hold our hands like this, like we're getting ready to clap. And what will happen is when we do this, and we'll hold it just for a few seconds, that's the no thought space. Okay, very brief, very short, and then we come back, and then we can let our mind think whatever it wants. And so we'll just try this a few times, and you can see what that's like. So here we go, like this. Okay, let's try it again. Just very short and sweet, a way to practice, a way to work on getting into this space of present moment awareness. Another one is listening to sounds. This is one I really like. So what we'll do is I'll ring the gong and just listen as long as you can in thoughtless awareness until the sound, you can't hear the sound anymore. Okay. One that's really great that I like is just called the 2 or 3 breath practice. So that you every now and then stop and take 2 or 3 conscious breaths. Okay, so I would do this. I did this summer. I worked on this large mural on the side of a building in Crookston. And so I would have this practice every so often. I'd stop painting and I would just sort of stare at the bricks, one of the bricks, a crack in the brick, and I would just take 2 or 3 conscious breaths. It didn't take very long, and it was this way to recenter again and then move back into the artwork. And so you can do this with many things, working on a sermon, working on getting ready for a meeting, getting ready to go somewhere, just arriving somewhere, taking a few conscious breaths, and then going, or getting ready to leave. Sometimes people get in their car before they start it up, 2 or 3 conscious breaths, and start the car and take off. So it's just, again, it's a way to sort of wake up, to not get lost all day long in that horizontal space of doing, of being human. And then we talked about the senses, paying attention to the senses. That's a great way to always come back to the present moment. If we just feel we've got too much going on, I can't get centered, it's good to pay attention. What am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I feeling? Without labeling. Without labeling. Oh yeah, that I'm hearing that noise. What is that? That's some kind of bird. What kind of bird? I know what that bird is. Then that's where the mind just loves to take off. So it's this sense of just noticing noise, any of our senses. Anyone else, do you have any particular methods that you found really helpful just to recenter you, to help bring you back to the present moment? And there are thousands of these different little meditations we can do. Thousands. And we can make up our own. You can make up your own. So what we're going to do right now, we're going to take about 20 minutes. And so we'll come back at 8 o'clock. And we're going to do, this will be our last meditation for the evening. And so what we're going to do is we're going to do very similar to what we did this afternoon. We're going to be in silence. We're going to get up. This time is a little bit different. It's a little darker out, a lot darker. And so we're going to be using less of our visual sense. I don't want anyone to fall into the lake. So just use your vision, but where it's darker, so aware of other senses. Feel, what you hear, what you're noticing. And again, what we're doing is we're going out, we're moving around. You can also stay in here if you would like. But if you move out, we're moving out in silence without our phones, and we're being very attentive to what we're experiencing. When we notice we're thinking, we just do what we need to do to come back to the present moment. Take a few intentional breaths, conscious breaths. Pay attention to your senses, whatever would work for you to bring yourself back to what you're experiencing. So we're going to do that now for just 20 minutes. We'll come back at 8 o'clock, and then we'll just share what this was like. So again, be aware of your movements. Maybe think about moving a little slower. Be aware of your surroundings, and be aware of your work right now is to be as present as you can be. Okay, I'll ring the gong and we will begin. Okay. Any comments, thoughts, observations about this last meditation time? What was this like? Yes.
I noticed my senses were heightened, even as vision kind of grew more dim. Like many of us, stepped out, heard an animal that I didn't know what it was. And my brain immediately wanted to go, what are you? Who are you?
Go the other way.
Yep, well, maybe that too. And it took me a minute, but I was able to kind of reframe it from a, I want to know who you are, to a, what if this is rather an invitation to be still and know who God is. And was able to then see the wind blow through the trees with the last rays of sunlight, and it was like the trees were breathing, the earth was breathing, and this happens whether I'm there or not. But invited into that moment to join my breath with the breath of creation was really powerful. And I don't know if it's more powerful when my eyes aren't able to see as much, therefore my brain can't process as much. But it was almost invited into the not knowing that made it more profound.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I had a little different reaction to the same noise, if you will. Not that I know the animal kingdom, but I wondered if this animal was in distress. And then my immediate moment, or my immediate reaction was, there's nothing I can do about it. And it centered me into myself. And in a way, it was like, I can't be that animal savior because I don't know enough about what that animal is to assist in any way. And it kind of centered me back to my moment.
Okay. Good. Yeah, sometimes we, the mind says you gotta, figure everything out and know what to do, and that's not always true. Like in that case, it was, okay, I can't do anything, okay? And if, a wild animal ran in the room right now, a couple of things could happen. One is we, just kind of scream and get frantic and kind of go below consciousness. The other idea is we kind of know what to do. We know, suddenly we know what we need to do. Run out, go over here, do this. But the mind's not part of that. The mind's not calculating, okay, do this, do that. It's this, wise action that arises without the mind needing to orchestrate everything. We know there's this intelligence that begins to arise because we're very focused, we're in the present moment. And so that's another experience. Yes.
I thoroughly enjoyed watching the breathing of the trees as you talked about. And then I was totally surprised to see a little skip of cloud just drift across. I could even see that against the sky in the darkening sky. It was just surprising.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So first of all, I just want to say thanks for participating in all of this, these two sessions. A lot of these meditations are challenging, and it's challenging to work with our mind and to see what's happening. So good job for all of you. And then just a couple of reminders. As you continue on, keep the idea of childlikeness in front of you, that welcoming attitude, that spontaneity, that openness. That's all very important. The playfulness, to keep that in front of you, because sometimes the seriousness, the mind makes things too serious. And so keep that childlikeness there with you. And then the second thing is, remember this connecting with God, connecting with who we truly are is always immediate. There is no time involved. You don't have to think, well, when I'm not so busy, then I can do that, or when I'm in better shape, I can do that, or when I'm more spiritually mature, I can do that, or when I'm just not, things are chaotic right now, then I can, or when I learn more, or get another degree, or whatever. None of that's true with this present moment connection. It's always immediate, right where we are, right here, right now. So, thank you all, and I hope you have a great night and the rest of your retreat. Oh yeah, and one last comment. So I've got some artwork and exploring the depths cards that I can explain. I'm packing that all up tonight, so if anybody's interested, I'll be back there tonight and I can chat with you.
Are there any more journals?
I have more journals. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Trey, for being here. He was a middle school and senior high keynote, 9 years ago? Yeah. And so it's just nice to get to work with you again. So thank you so much for being with us, Trey. And thank you, Mary, as well. I asked someone who participated in the Grit and Grace like, oh, how did it go? And they're like, oh, you know Mary's amazing. And I'm like, I do know Mary is amazing. So thank you so much for being here as well, Mary. Thank you. A couple of other thank yous. I don't get to do this publicly enough, but the cute guy behind the camera, who's walking out the door right now, is my husband. He's been here helping me take videos for the people who can't be here, and take some pictures, and then it's just a good person for me to lean on when I have events. So thank you so much. And I have the list of the amazing people on the planning team, and I know they're not all here because some of them are helping set up the reception that's going to be here. But Mary Francis is our facilitator, and Cheryl Berg is down. David Fleener, if you're here, wave. Jean Oman, Allie Hagerwood, Eric Shriverian, Scott Hecker, Tammy Jacobson. So thank you so much for the work you did in planning. Before I talk some more, I want to introduce you. You met Emily and Dominique this like right before lunch. I want to introduce you to Pastor Dave Adams and Deacon John Lisa, who are here from Concordia. Come on down.
Hello, I am Deacon John, and I am Concordia's Minister for Faith and Spirituality in Action, which essentially means that along with being a ministry generalist, I especially tend to how we do and be community, including service. And when Chris mentioned that she wanted to introduce us tonight, one thing that I thought of to share is in a conversation earlier today, someone asked me, what can we do on behalf of our college students? And I think especially in the midst of a pandemic, it could be especially valuable for you simply to reach out to your college student in some way, shape, or form and say, hey, we're still here for you. We're thinking of you, and we recognize that this particular situation is challenging. Because even though the pandemic has calmed in some ways, it continues to be challenging for all of us, and that includes our young adults. So whether that's now at the beginning of the academic year, especially maybe for an incoming first-year student, or for an incoming sophomore, because they still haven't had a normal college or university year. And then, of course, as we come to either the ends of semesters or quarters, whatever system those students might be on, just a little note or a little care package, a little love might go a long way in terms of tending well to your young adults. We're trying on our end too.
And I'm Dave Adams, and my wife Kim and I, we share the campus pastor position at Concordia, and we also share the campus pastor position at Crossroads with your campus ministry across the river at NDSU. And that's where, so my wife Kim is actually rostered in Eastern North Dakota, I'm rostered in Northwestern Minnesota, and so it's just a joy for us to get to do campus ministry in two very different contexts. But we really do love working together, and we are so grateful to have such a wonderful colleague in Deacon John here. And it really, I echo everything that John said, and just a reminder to all of you that we love church relations, we love being a part of this synod. So if there's ever anything that we can do within your congregation, let us know. We love to come and talk about campus ministry. We love to just really build relationships. So thank you.
A couple of notes of one of my hats I get to wear. I get to do some first, third ministry. Youth ministry is the thing in my email tagline. We're gonna have a middle school youth gathering this year. What? And it's going to be the weekend before Thanksgiving. The theme is Who is My Neighbor? A little nod to Mr. Rogers, because I'm a fan of Mr. Rogers. And we have our newest synodically authorized worshiping community pastors are going to be our keynotes. So Emily Pappy Larson and Grant Vanderford will be our speakers, speaking to us about who is our neighbor. So that we'll probably have some COVID protocols. We probably will have the cap be a little lower than normal. We're still figuring out all those details. I'm imagining a gathering in a box sort of situation, like you probably did Sunday school in a box last year, where the videos and devotions and activities will be available for your congregation to use for confirmation some other time during the year or for youth group. The ELCA Youth Gathering is going to happen next summer. Woohoo! In Minneapolis, you don't have to be in the bus for like 4 days each way. And registration early bird starts this Wednesday. Last week, the ELCA Youth Gathering office said what their COVID protocols are right now is what we did for this gathering. So you either need to be vaccinated or have a negative COVID test result 72 hours before the gathering. And I believe they'll say, be prepared to show it. So they're still figuring all that out. They don't know the masking rules yet, but that was brought up last week. And then we're gonna do something different for senior high this year. I am so excited. We have the most amazing high schoolers in our synod, and we want to raise up leaders. So we're gonna do like a leadership lab sort of thing, training young people in your congregations with a caring adult. That could be you, a different staff member, or a parent, in peer ministry and how to do leadership in your congregations and high school and community. So we're still figuring that out. We'll probably be partially on Zoom and partially in person. But I needed to get through this before I can figure out all the details. And so we will be letting you all know about that later. Tomorrow we'll have closing worship. We will be receiving an offering for Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services. So I encourage you to remember. I'm not always great at remembering to bring my wallet or checkbook to closing worship. And I think that's it for me. I'm going to call up our Bishop, William Tesh, who is here with us.
Yeah, I think only my mother has called me. My mother and the General of Air Combat Command, so you're in good company. It's good to be here with you, everybody, tonight. I know most of you know I was at my son's wedding, and thanks for your graciousness and just understanding about that. It was just a delightful time. He told me when he was getting married, and I made it a point not to tell my kids when they can do things like get married, and it happened to be on this weekend, and so I said I'll be there, and Chris and I, my wife and I, just had a delightful time with our families and watching our family grow. So I did think of you a couple of times, not that much to be honest, but we were pretty engaged with one another and it was great, so good to be here. One of the things I'm learning in this role is how little actual power a bishop has. I have, like people will inform me that they're retiring, and I will tell them, well, I'm not going to approve that, and they retire anyway. And then they'll tell me they're transferring out of our synod for taking another call somewhere else. I'll tell them I'm not approving that, and they do it anyway. And case in point, Pastor Karen Young-Trenny. Pastor Karen, will you come up here? So Pastor Karen, most of you probably know, she actually, technically, right now, even now, is actually a member of that synod across the river, right? Not yet? We haven't sent it yet? Well, we're not going to. So anyway, Pastor Karen has accepted a call to serve as the interim senior pastor at Sharon Lutheran across the river. A great opportunity for you, and I know that you're going to be a real blessing to the people at Sharon Lutheran, but I'm sad that you're leaving our synod, temporarily, of course, right? Promise? Temporarily, and also our synod staff. You've served for 2 years as our synod minister for community leader engagement for the Crossroads and Crookston conferences. Yeah, Moorhead, why did I say Crossroads? Moorhead and Crookston conferences. And you know, in our synod, we have 3 values: faithfulness in relationships, authentic in our welcome, and love that makes a difference. And Pastor Karen, I have just cherished the way that you embody the values of love, making a difference, and faithful in relationships. I remember when we were talking about you joining our staff, and I asked, so what unique sort of gift would you think you will bring to our staff? And I remember your answer. You said, you know, I identify myself as a person, I've always thought of myself as progressive and liberal, but my whole ministry has been among people who would definitely not identify themselves that way. And I love them, and I have loved them. And I have noticed that that is really true. You have loved your people, not only in your own parishes, but also now in these last 2 years in your work in the Synod. And I have seen you be fierce in your defense of the people that you love. And what a delightful and important gift for a pastor, a shepherd. And it's been a gift to us on our staff. There have been times where you have spoken the hard truth that brought us back to reality, when the very rare occasion when we got going about, you know, people that annoy us. And that's none of you in this room. No. And you just would always remind us that they're people who are loved by you, by God, by us, of course, but you just demonstrate that. And I've seen your gift of love making a difference in your work with conflicted congregations, bringing compassion and understanding and listening. And I've just been grateful for you. And so I want to thank you for your good work with us. And you do have to come back, though. That is, it's got to return. Just kidding. No, you keep that. But we love you, and but you're not going far, right?
No.
Well, this is my coin. It happens to have our synod on one side and the Bishop Bill Tesh Northwestern Minnesota Synod and the Evangelical Lutheran seal on the other side. And this is, I don't know if it originated in the military, but it's something I learned about in the military, about that leaders will coin people who demonstrate the values that we're trying to live out and promote. Our values are that way that we get to where God is calling us to go. So, and you have definitely done that, and I've been grateful for you. Will you say something to us, Pastor?
Well, this just means the world to me, because I knew about being coined, and I didn't think that I ever would get one, being that I've never been in the military. So this is truly awesome, and it's been a real delight to serve with you on the Synod staff and with our amazing staff. I really discerned very intentionally about whether I wanted to leave. And you know, I've been telling people that have been asking me what happened, and I said I've never had an internal call process before. I've always had an external call process. And this call process was internal, so when I finally got the courage to call Bill and say, I keep feeling like the Holy Spirit's calling me in this direction.
And I said, no, she's not.
Actually, his first response was, I am not going to get in the way of the Holy Spirit. So thank you for that, and thank you to all of you. I've really this was my first synod. I've jumped across the river. I think this is my 4th time, so I'm bound to jump across the river again. You know, that's
I didn't know that, so that's good.
Yeah. I was a Fargo student. My first call was at Fulton Borup, then we went to Bedette, then we went to Grand Forks, then I went to East Grand Forks, then I went to Grand Forks. Yeah, so, yeah, it's just bound to happen. So anyway, thank you all.
So we'll have some more time together tomorrow to talk about how we're doing as a synod and where we think we're going together. I'm just so grateful that you're all here and that we can be together like this. I was amazed when we realized there were 120 registrations, but I think it really speaks to how much we've longed to be together like this. And so thank you for taking the proper precautions that you're all doing. I believe it's possible for us to be safe and to be together, and so I'm just grateful that we can be. We're gonna have some refreshments now, right? Yeah. And I did bring 1 bottle of whiskey and some cigars. There's not enough for everybody, but Trey did ask if anyone has a spiritual practice that helps center them, and I thought, well, does whiskey and cigars count? Anyway, I have a few to share if anybody's interested, if it's not too cold outside. So. All right.
Yeah, so the reception is ready in the dining hall, and we have some beer and wine, and some root beer in bottles, and some pomegranate juice and Sprite, and all that deliciousness, and some food and treats, so please come on down. This reception is in honor of our new people in the Synod, put on by the Synod staff. So please come and enjoy some fellowship together.
And we're going to officially introduce them tomorrow.
Yeah, we're going to officially introduce the new people to our Synod since Fair Hills 2019 tomorrow during Bishop Bill's time. And breakfast is at 8:30 tomorrow. Go in peace. Serve the Lord.